it's easy to say who has access to what, but technically, engineering-wise, a very, very hard problem at scale. And the reason, as you rightly called out, Jason, is, the only purest and the truest form where we can determine what does Jason has access to. Let's say, hey, what does Jason has access to in Salesforce? You have to look in your profile in Salesforce. And that profile is called an RBAC profile, right? You're associated to some role. Based on that role, you get access. So imagine RBAC has no common language. RBAC of Oracle has nothing to do with RBAC of SQL Server. And there are 5,000 SaaS applications, and there are 500 data systems out in the world. So you have, on one side, the cardinality problem, which is you're talking about permissions, which are completely unique. A read permission of Oracle doesn't necessarily mean a read permission in SRE. And on the other hand, you're talking about cardinality problem, where identities, as Nicole mentioned, identity being the perimeter, is you have humans, but you also have non-humans, the service accounts, the applications, the machine identities. And so I guess to answer your question, it's a problem rooted in three very critical frontiers. One, somebody has to go figure out what we call it a canonical object model for RBAC. How do you normalize end systems of RBAC into a fundamental data structure on which you can build search, monitoring, insights, workflows? Number two is the cardinality problem, because the scale, a billions and billions of small objects is a fairly hard distributed systems problem. How do you ingest? How do you normalize? How do you make it searchable? And the third problem that makes it hard is, we all like to say the word cloud, but that's not true from an enterprise perspective. I was just talking to a Fortune 10 bank this morning, and they're like, look, we have 3% of our workloads in the cloud. 97% of our workloads are sitting on-prem. And so will Veza support on-prem systems? And that brings another set of complexity, because from an organization perspective, they don't want to know what can Nicole do on Box. That's one of the use cases. They want broad horizontal visibility to n number of systems. So another long question, long answer to a question, but RBAC being not normalized, cardinality of the problem set is fairly high, or data set is what we call it, and the breadth of applicability spans a pretty wide variety of systems. That makes sense.
Veza has, your core innovation is an authorization graph, right? Which is a graph database that's mapping identities to these very granular permissions. And that database already has hundreds of millions of nodes and edges because this is a very complicated thing to do numerically, which sort of explains why companies can't really solve this with human labor alone. Not only is it nobody's job to go back in and trim access after a period of time, but there's just such a volume that no amount of human beings sitting at their desks could solve this problem themselves. That's why I think automation is going to be such a key point.